And welcome to another exciting adventure on Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm going to be giving you guys a brief intro into today's episode because we are limited on time and it is such a topic that I want to jump right into. So, I have an amazing guest to help us out with this. And so I am going to turn it over to the one, the only author extraordinaire, Constance Victoria Briggs.
Oh my goodness, thank you. That's quite an introduction.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
thank you for reaching out and wanting to do this with me.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be back on your show. I always enjoy coming on. You're such an excellent host, Michael.
Well, thank you.
So if you want me to start, we're discussing the declassified UFO files today. Can't believe this has happened. I heard it was going to happen on May 8th, and I didn't quite believe it. Kept glancing at the news to see if it was true, and it did. They came out with, I think, some amazing information that was very much needed for the public and late. Now, I know that there are people out there who said it's a nothing burger, but that's not true as far as I'm concerned, because number one, they need to take baby steps with what they're releasing. So when they said it's a nothing burger, they meant that they were showing, the government has shown UFOs, lots of videos of UFOs. I'm going through them. I'm still going through them. But for people who are new to this topic, this is news for them. For people who have never experienced seeing a UFO, this is shocking for them. So it wasn't a nothing burger. It really is a big deal for your average person. I live in an environment where the people around me, and I don't mean my immediate household, I mean my neighbors and friends and acquaintances, really don't believe that this is going on. They think that this is a constant thing. They think this is my hobby and my interest. They have not had a clue that there are flying saucers, UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to refer to them as, going over their homes on the ocean. I live right down the street I'm in Southern California, so I live close to the beach, and I live close to the area where the Tic Tacs were seen. Tic Tac was seen, and but they are just clueless. So for people who have been clueless, who haven't been believing, the fact that the U.S. government has declassified files and released them is a big deal. It's shocking, and it's leaving some people speechless.
Well, and the important thing, too, is we have been growing up in an age where the government was like, if you say the word UFO, you would be marked as crazy. They would do everything to discredit you. And so for them to come out now and say, hey, here's all this information we have on a topic that we've been denying is a major thing, because I feel like all these people who have been sharing UFO experiences kind of got redemption and a little bit of validation from them by saying, hey, this isn't, we're no longer going to call you crazy. This is real.
Yeah, so I decided a while ago to ignore the fact that the government hadn't disclosed anything and just go with what I believe and write it down. Because I think, for me, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, they were already, I believe they existed. And I have had experiences, and I've done the research, and now I've done the writing for years. They're out there. So I didn't need the government to tell me. So I decided to prepare information in books to help people understand that we're not alone in the universe, that there's something going on. So one of those books is the Earth's Extraterrestrial History and its Earth's Galactic History and its Extraterrestrial Connection. And I wanted that book to be a kind of primer for people who wanted to move beyond waiting for disclosure, wanted to move beyond first contact, and get some information in an easy, as I was telling you earlier, easily digestible way. So I thought we should move past waiting for the government, but now the government has come out and come out with the files. And what's interesting is the information that I have in my books are reflecting what they're talking about. And just to get this going and started a little bit deeper, I have written 2 books on the moon, and besides the Earth's galactic history, the moon, for example, I guess that's where I'll start. People were telling me, Constance, there's no one on the moon. There's nothing on the moon. There's not UFOs near the moon. And I was saying, there's someone up there. There's something up there. There's something going on. This releasing has validated, and I've seen people talking about this online, has validated that there's something going on with the moon and there is someone on the moon. And I've seen comments online from people who said, but I thought we didn't go to the moon. There's a lot of people who believe we didn't go to the moon. But I do, so I talk about it, obviously. But I thought we didn't go to the moon. Well, first of all, they have files there from a few of the missions. One of those include Apollo 17, where they have photographs from the astronauts who took pictures of UFOs and strange lights. They have transcripts from Apollo 12, where they're saying they saw strange things on the moon and craft near the moon, and as well as Apollo 11. What surprised me was that this was classified information, because I've written 2 books on the subject. And in those books, I have put in what all of the missions, astronauts saw while they were on the moon. And all of them, except one, actually saw UFOs in strange lights while traveling. Okay, and the fact that, but no one is, a lot of people didn't believe it, but the fact that this was released in declassified files from the government says, yes, it did. And we have the information to prove it. And I don't know if they were even aware that they were validating all of the information about the moon, because I'm not the first to talk about it. I consider myself, kind of a galactic historian or a reporter or a messenger, but there were people before me who have done, amazing research about the moon, going all the way back to the creation of the telescope. And this really interests me a lot, because, I've talked about what happened back then. When the telescope was created, the astronomers immediately started studying the moon. And it was considered scientific fact back then that there was someone on the moon. They were seeing, in those early times, lights moving across the moon, other things, objects moving across the moon. And they said there was someone there. They said that the moon was, looked a lot like Earth in its topography. And I don't know that people, really realize that, but it really does have craters and hills and mountains. Some people still, because of the NASA pictures and some other information, think it's just this flat, pale gray surface. No, there's even a place up there that's called the moon's Grand Canyon. So they were saying they were seeing lots of movement and all of this interesting topography. It was scientific fact. In more modern times, it came as we went along. Our scientists said no one can live on the moon because of the atmosphere. There's no one up there. But they never explained all of the movement and all the lights and things going right. They just said it can't happen. And people took that as fact to this day. And they went ahead and they sent men to the moon in the 60s. Now, before they sent the men to the moon, they made a collection of files of the old, I call them the astronomers of old, and what they saw all the way up to the beginning of the 60s, and they put them in a book. You can buy this book, by the way, guys. It's the NASA Lunar Technical Report, and they've got all of these things that were seen in the moon going all the way back to the creation of the telescope. It was the British Astronomical Society that collected them, and then the U.S. government added to them. All right, so my point is, even though they had this information, the scientists were still saying there's no one up there, we can't live there. So with the opening of these files, they're saying, yes, someone is there. We have the images to prove it, and we have transcripts from the astronauts. But I'm here to tell you, too, the reason I don't know why this was classified is because I've written books that talk about things that the lunar orbiter saw up there, the astronauts saw, images. NASA has all the transcripts from all of the missions that went up. Anyway, so not only do you have the U.S. government files, but you can go on your own and research without even going to those files. I wrote 2 books on it. But it validates that we went. People will still disagree with that. And it validates that there's something going on up there and that there's someone up there, because not only did they see lights and craft, but they have found, and this is not in the files yet, they're releasing more, but they are in my books and other information out there, other books. They have found structures on the moon. They have found signs of someone mining the moon. They have shown craters with lights moving around in them above them. They've even shown during lunar eclipses, that there are lights moving around the moon. So someone's there. But our government, I don't know if they realized it, just confirmed that.
And, that's, we talk about, like you're saying in the 60s when Apollo missions were launched, people were lining up, outside of Cape Canaveral to watch this. It was like the event of the century, so to speak, for America, that, we're going into space, and people would be glued to their TVs. And then what I found interesting is when, we get in the 70s and 80s, it's like people are like, yeah, we're going to the moon. Okay. Yeah, we're going into space. And it's like it lost its luster, so to speak. And now that we have all these, documents being released that shows the images and everything, it's like, hey, wait a minute. It's like we're going back to the 60s, and we're like, this is going to be the event of the century for America's. Look at, all this stuff from space that we have. And I think that's where the draw of, why it's getting so much attention too is it's not only validating, what people have said and seen, but it's also for like people who, like you're saying, never believed we did this or that. It's like, wait a minute. We now have the documents showing this and showing us what really was up there, not the school book photos that were doctored. What?
Right. Right. And I bet you, for the people, way back then, who weren't that interested in the 70s and 80s, if they had known, if they had told what they had seen at that point up there, because each of those missions saw strange lights and UFOs, and they were all followed by something. Whoever is up there was watching, the missions. I don't know if they were worried about them going, but even going back to the Mercury and Gemini missions those are the missions before the Apollo ones, they were seeing, UFOs and being followed. One of those missions even had, I think it was the Gemini mission, and they were hearing a strange language over the radio. They saw a UFO and they heard a strange language. If they had been reporting all of this stuff to the public would have been more interested, but they were hiding it. And they were hiding it because NASA asked an agency, and I forget the name of what the agency was originally, but now we know that it's the Brookings report. That's what this report is. NASA had said, what do we do if the astronauts encounter life in outer space? And the report basically said not to tell. I believe they're still following that. It said don't tell, and they shut it down. They were more open before that report, I feel like, about some things, but and they're following it to this day, if you ask me. And yeah, of course, there may be more reasons now that I don't know, but I think that's where the cover up started. It would they thought it would upset the public. It might upset the economy. It would upset religion. So they kept it. They covered it up, and they started covering up pictures of things that have been seen on the moon. But yeah, and the people today, I mean, most of those people in the 60s, they're leaving, they're gone, they're passing away. And the young people today, and even, the ones in between, I don't mean, like my kids' generations in their 20s, but even, the people in their 40s don't know to go to NASA and look up these files and that they can see things. They weren't alive back then, and so they are missing a lot of information. So now, though, for people like me that are talking about it, and those that are, in those younger ages that are hearing about it, they know now that it happened. And now we just need to ask, what does this all mean for us? What does that mean for humanity? What does this mean for Earth, that there is someone on the moon? Is it the people on the moon? Are they the ones flying the UFOs around Earth? What's going on? And I think that as a worldwide society, we should all be thinking about this and trying to understand it and not live in the dark and be asking questions. I've seen people online saying, "Oh, why is it only the United States that have UFO experiences, and that have files, blah, blah, blah." It's not true. It's the whole world. And there are countries that are now opening up and declassifying their files, as well as the US. Brazil recently did. Russia did years ago. And Japan recently said they were going to release their files. And I don't know if there's any others, but at least they're releasing files. And the reports of UFOs is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just the US. They're everywhere.
And an important thing to note is, a lot of times, you'll hear like the UFO community and other, communities talking about the Star Trek future. And Constance and I, we're into Star Trek. And there's one thing that I remember hearing through the Star Trek series was when the Federation was founded, the United Federation of Planets, it was because Earth unified and looked to the sky and realized we were not alone and started to go outward and realized that was our next point. And I can't help but think right now, where we're living at right now, with the governments starting to come forward and sharing these documents, if that's the catalyst that's going to launch, the planet to stop, fighting over boundaries and going, hey, wait a minute. We have things out there now to look at and focus on and become the unification and, create in reality the Star Trek future that everybody talks about. Could this be one of those key moments projecting that forward?
Yeah, so that that we have worlds in our galaxy that are billions of years old, some that are thousands of years old, hundreds, and the new ones out there. And I think that each of them had to reach a point, this is just my opinion, had to reach a point where they would get to the perimeter of making a decision to, move over that cross over that line and move into a galactic future or stay the way that they are. And I think that this is where we are today. I think that there are beings out there that know about us, that have been interacting with us, that have been trying to educate us, as they have done many times before in many worlds, just like in Star Trek, when they got what, warp speed, then they
Right.
came in and they introduced themselves and said, you're part of a galactic, community. I think that's what's going on here. And I think that this is the not the beginning, but part of it. I think the beginning started when I think believe that the extraterrestrials or the powers that be have been trying to educate us about this. And in looking at the media, for example, as you said, Star Trek. I believe that Star Trek was created to educate people, as were many of the other scientific uh, movies and books. It was created for us to understand that we're not alone and to prepare us. I was telling you earlier that Gene Roddenberry, I don't know if I mentioned it, Gene Roddenberry was sitting in on channeling sessions with a woman that said she was channeling extraterrestrials. I believe they were called the Council of Nine, and that they were on a ship, and that there were beings from many different worlds, from other worlds on the ship, and they were traveling in peaceful missions. And it's thought that Roddenberry created Star Trek, was inspired to create Star Trek from what he was hearing, and also some of the scripts. And this was designed, again, to educate us, as in Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica. Um, all of those have opened people's minds. Some people have even come to expect that we're not alone, whereas others are still saying, no, 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 that was sci-fi. So yeah, I think that was the beginning. And now we're at kind of a second point where we are actually getting information from our governments saying yes and confirming that this is a thing, and preparing us and to be prepared. Although there is resistance, and I think that every world that has gone through this training, if you will, have met some resistance to the idea of not being alone in the universe, especially when it comes to things like religion and other beliefs that may not you know believe, that want to accept this reality.
Right. And I wonder if, and this is a theory of mine, I have no proof that this is what happened, but I remember in 2021, scientists, made the headlines of warp speed is capable. We can do warp drive. And then it was like in 2022, it was like disappeared. It was like a blip on the radar and then it disappeared. And I've often felt, hey, that was deemed classified and buried. And so I'm wondering, as this as gets declassified, our craft capabilities going to start getting declassified, and the fact of all these technologies that we have available to us, like replicators, warp drive, are these all going to start re-emerging and being declassified and allowed to come forward again? And so, is this, like you're saying, the stepping stone?
The step,
Or
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say baby steps. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Baby steps. They're giving it to us in baby steps, Michael, I think.
Definitely. Well, and I think that that's what's needed, because if we were to go to certain places, I mean, I even remember when the Vatican, talking about religion, said, yeah, we believe in ETs, and they made the joke, oh, if they come here, we'll baptize them into the faith. And a lot of people just thought that was funny, but I actually honestly feel like that's a reality to them, is they were like, yeah, we are acknowledging that there are ETs out there, and that kind of went over everyone's head, but that was a major stepping stone too. And so there's been several stepping stones leading to this. Just nobody sees it as the picture because they're so far spread apart.
Right, right. Excuse me for seeming distracted. I was actually looking for a quote in my notes that I didn't find. And, I'm looking up here too. I've got notes all around me, guys, so I'm looking up sometimes. But I couldn't find this quote from the gentleman, and I'm forgetting his name, but it's a very famous one at Skunkworks, who said that they've been working on tech that people have been missing, not knowing about for years, that can do everything we've seen on Star Trek. So that's what I was looking for. But yeah, that's a very famous quote. Apparently, this has been going on for years. We've been missing information. I was trying to get back to that, so I apologize. I was moving around. But yeah, apparently we have the technology to do a lot of things that we have not been privy to knowing. And I think with the opening of these files, we will get this information, and they said they're going to be releasing it periodically, right? So I think that's what you're talking about, I think, is coming.
Right. And is the quote you're talking about, is that Ben Rich, the
Yes.
CEO?
Yes, I was so trying to find it. I thought I had it for your show right there, so I apologize. Yeah, I love that.
I think I found it. It says, if you've seen it in Star Trek or Star Wars, we've already done it or decided it wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah. And that's something we didn't know. Who out there has heard that quote? Well, your followers may have, because they're probably into the UFO stuff, but there are people who don't know that at all. They've been keeping it from us, but now we're going to get more information. Just give it time. That's what opening these files are all about. I don't know if everybody involved in opening these files know what the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, maybe.
I put the quote on the bottom so people could see it.
Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit, because I know we have time constraints here, about USOs, underwater submerged objects. This has been something that has come out in just recently. I think they have become a big deal. And again, there are people who are not aware of this information or who don't believe it. But I have to tell you, I've been talking about them a little bit for a while. I have them in my Earth's Galactic History book. People have been seeing these USOs for years and years. All right, we always hear about what's going on in the sky, but I mean, I've been working on a book where, I'm talking about people standing on the beach, watching these craft go in and out of water. They are not shy about showing themselves. If they were, they're not shy anymore. They just come and go as they please. And people have been taking pictures, and they've been writing about them and talking about them. And they are a thing. And guess what? The declassified UFO files have a lot of information on USOs, videos, okay? Audio from people that are experiencing them and seeing them right there in the files. Tons of them flying over the water, flying over the ships. There's one video that I can't tell what they're doing. It looks like there's several. I'm like, what is this? Just moving around this boat. And what am I looking at? This is where the tic-tac topic comes in. They were over water. So USOs are UFOs, and they become USOs when they submerge under the water. All right. So there is one video, and I haven't finished them all, that one is, it looks like a craft coming out of water, and it divides into two. But ton of them over the water. And so who are they? Where are they coming from? Are they related to the moon? How long have they been there? But the government has just released this. So now people can take that subject seriously. So that when they're seeing something flying over the ocean or coming out of the ocean, they know, okay, the government's familiar with it. They're working on it. Who are they? How long have they been there? It's not us. And I tell you, several countries have said, it's not our technology. We don't know who they are or where they're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, and Terry was nice enough to point out Ben Rich also said we had the technology to take ET home.
Yeah,
And people may not realize that's a reference to the ET movie from the 80s.
that's right. Isn't that something?
Yes, and Terry's also bringing up the movie Abyss, where the ship was under the water. And, that brings up an interesting point where everybody is thrilled we're going out into space and exploring space, and
Mhm.
we're trying to figure out how to develop craft that can sustain in space. And I'm like, if UFOs are under the water and in space, is the
Mhm.
same tech not possible here? And when we say we don't explore our oceans, as much as we used to, I feel like that, when we do, it's classified, but why can't we take the technology of, the shuttles and make waters, depth capable ships that can go and explore the bottom of the ocean and explore, because the pressures, seem to be somewhat the same, if because you never see a UFO like come up out of the water and then like had this glow of like changing shape or anything, or meaning like if it comes up as a cylinder, you see it go up and out into space as that cylinder. You don't see it go, oh, we need to now change our outer appearance to sustain in space. So why don't we have the same tech? And I feel like we do, but again, it's classified, and I'm, curious that, is going to start coming out of what are we exploring in our oceans?
So this is what they're calling transmedium technology, where a craft can fly in space and in our atmosphere and go into the ocean. And the government is saying, no, 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 we don't know. We don't have that kind of technology. And again, maybe you're right. Maybe we do, and they're not talking about it, or they're not utilizing it. Who knows? Or maybe it's part of. And I know nothing about this. The secret space program. I hear that maybe it could be them, but I'm no expert there, so I won't even go into that. But there's definitely something going on. There's definitely someone in the waters. I mean, I have stories um, where there was a USO sitting on top of the water. I don't know how it was doing it, but someone had seen it and they saw beings on the top running around it doing some kind of work, and then they submerged. There's information out of Russia where, and this is a very famous story, where the Russians tried to capture ETs when they had their naval divers in the waters doing experiments or tests or whatever, training. It was training. They had run across beings that they tried to capture, and the beings kind of propelled them out of the water, and they died. Two of them died, three were critically injured. But we have that information, so we know that there's beings down there. There's something going on. But what's amazing to me is that the beings that were described in that account out of Russia and the beings that were described on the account of the people who saw the UFO with the other beings, these were like 3-foot beings. The other ones in the water at Russia were something like 7 to 9 feet tall. They weren't even the same. So what's that about? Are there different kinds of beings going in and out of the water? Or is it like on the surface of Earth where we have different races of people and different species? Well, we know there's different species down there, but I mean, the intelligent beings, are there different? Well, they're all intelligent. Animals are intelligent too, but I'm saying, are they? There are several different kind of humanoid beings in the ocean, because both of these descriptions were humanoid beings. But who is it? And what I like about the abyss is that it shows that we were being monitored the extraterrestrials in the abyss were monitoring humanity. All right. And they had the ability, they had gotten the main character, I'm forgetting his name, but they had gotten him and they put him in their ship and they were able to give him oxygen and put him in an environment where he could breathe and, withstand pressure and all of that. Are these beings like that? Are they monitoring us? Can they communicate with us? Because I wonder why there hasn't been an introduction with humanity. Or has there been? Do the government know about them just like they may know about the people, the beings on the moon? Do they know more than what they're saying?
Right. And the other interesting thing about the abyss was, the fact that the divers were using liquid oxygen in their helmets.
Yeah.
And when I forget which Mars movie it was, but it was the one where they walked into the face on Mars, and he all of a suddenly is encompassed in this cylinder of like light, and it becomes somewhat liquefied to like water almost, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to go travel?" And it's like, absolutely. And so it's like they, kind of created an environment for him too, but there seems to be a connection with the water, in both accounts. And we do get, oxygen is in the water. And so, in our creation, we are in a liquid state until we burst the bubble and come out. And that's about as descriptive of that experience as I'm going to get. But, it seems to me, I also wonder, when we look at these beings, we're assuming they have a structural, you know, body like we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that on the surface, gravity is much different than in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder sometimes, like you're saying, they were 7, 8 feet tall in the water, but when walking on the land, on their ship in our gravity environment, could it have shrunk them down to 3 feet? And their body is able to, be more malleable than ours. And so they shrink down and they're like, okay, yeah, we're doing our thing. And then I'll grow back to my normal size and surface. And I even was watching an anime from the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
Robotech or Macross. And there's a race of people who are our size, but then go into a liquid chamber and they become 7, 8, 9 feet tall. And it's like, whoa, So what is it about the liquid state that does make us able to change? That's what I find is so interesting, that it seems to be the common thread.
Wow. I hadn't thought about that. I didn't know about that. It is interesting. Fascinating stuff. Yeah. Well, um, okay. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to comment on that, Michael, because I know nothing about that. But I do say that we don't know what extraterrestrials, are like, or how they're made, or what kind of environments they come from. Where they're saying, ETs can't we live on the moon because there's no atmosphere. Well, we can't, but it could be someone else. We can't live in the ocean, but an extraterrestrial could adapt, right? They might know how
Right.
to. Obviously, they know how to. So, that's all I've got for that
Well,
stuff. But
here's an interesting twist to it too, is
yeah.
we only believe we can't breathe in space or on the moon or underwater because that's what we've been taught. And so we believe it, so therefore we don't have that ability. But what if we do? What if we can breathe water? What if we can breathe in space or on the moon? And it just is, we have to retrain our mind to go back to its primordial, before society told us what we couldn't do. And how much different would we be?
I
Yeah,
like that. I don't
yeah,
know, but I like that. You're bringing up things I know nothing about, but I like it. And it takes me into a whole other mindset, because I do write and talk about metaphysics too, and I'm thinking, well, if we leave our body, we can we can do it. That's
right.
another show, right?
And Terry's commenting, what if space isn't exactly what we are told? And there's
Exactly.
that
That's right.
too.
That's right. We just don't know if we've been giving the truth, guys. Hopefully, we're getting there, you know, and creating. Uh, if the government is trying to tell us that we have a relationship with extraterrestrials, which is where I think they might be going, then maybe we will get information out of extraterrestrials that we never had before, that we never knew existed. There could be things going on that we couldn't even begin to imagine. And that's part of the excitement about meeting people from other worlds, is we don't know what's going on totally. We don't know what's out there. We are primitive to a race of beings that may be thousands, billions of years old. Um, who knows what we're going to learn, and who knows what we will be able to achieve if their technology is shared with us. Are they going to propel us into that galactic Star Trek future? you know. But I do think that we're going to have to get past the growing pains before we get there. And the growing pains being, I've been looking at my notes. When I'm looking up, I'm looking at my notes that I have here for myself. I have, are we being prepared for what's coming? We're going to have to get past for the people that are not prepared. Is the government preparing us? Are extraterrestrials preparing us? Are we being prepared through the media? And if so, are we ready for this information? How is the information going to affect people? How are people reacting? And what to expect in the future? So I think that we have reached a point where we have to look at what I'm calling the growing pains before we get there, because we are going to meet some resistance. It is not going to be a blink of the eye thing without a whole lot of pushback, I think. But I think we have to go through it.
I agree. And I find it interesting, like you call it the growing pains, I call it the tipping point, because the reason I say tipping point is we are a society to where we, fight just because someone crossed a border. Our reaction is we fight to protect what's ours. And we're individual um, units on a planet instead of a global unit. And so, with all this information coming forth, it's like that tipping point of now going from individualistic to global and universal, you could even say, or galactic. And yeah, I agree with Terry. It is a paradigm changing, but I also feel like we are in a place where, the thought of a country going to war with another country, it's not as, the people aren't going, yes, we need to do that. That's where we were. Now it's why? Why are we going to war? Why are we? And we're questioning it. It's like we're wanting to do a different path. And so it's like maybe that's why now was the time for this to be declassified, because I can imagine, we've all seen like the sci fi shows where we're, the warlike people and we're going into space and we're fighting everybody we come across.
Mhm.
And it's like the universe doesn't need that. The galactics don't need that. That's not where they are. And so it's like we were suppressed until we grew out of that. So it's like the growing pain you're talking about is we're no longer in that state. So now they're like, hey, now you guys can come and, explore with us.
I don't know. I mean, That's where I want. That's how I want to look at this. I want to look at this very positively, and I believe that we are dealing with the positive beings who are trying to help Earth. However, in my opinion, we're still warring. All right, we're asking questions, but the whole world to me feels like it's on fire, right? And I do know that there is an Andromedan ambassador who has been talking outwardly for years about what the Andromedans have told him. And one of the things is that there is a timeline for disclosure here. And but they've been waiting for us, and the Galactic Federation has said something like this too. They're waiting for, like you said, Michael, waiting for us to grow up and to mature and to become, more spiritual and better with our thinking and not being a warring race. They're saying we're primitive and we're a warring race. But they did say that they're not going to let us blow up, all life on this planet. That it's too important, and also nuclear weaponry has effects out into the galaxy. And they said that if they have to, they will speed up that timeline and they will step in. So for me, when I see us still warring and I see this disclosure thing going on, I wonder if it's because we look like we're about to blow up the world. And basically, the Andromedans were saying that if we don't knock it off, they're going to, have to step in, and there could be consequences to our actions. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they mean, what they're going to, do with us. I send us back to the primitive state, to the caveman state or something. I don't know, but they said they're not going to let it happen. So I'm wondering which way this is going. Is it because it's time for disclosure and they're finished educating the public, or is it because we're so close to a nuclear war? That makes me
Right.
think.
Terry's asking if you're talking about Alex Collier.
Yes, yes, Terry. Sometimes when I'm on these podcasts, I forget names because I get nervous. That's exactly who I'm talking about.
I,
Thank you.
I had the same feeling too, and then Sile Cola is asking maybe why time feels like it's moving fast is because they're speeding up our time so that we start, because that's something too that I think is really important for people to realize is here on Earth we have a time system that's confusing as all get out because not everybody follows it. But then you go galactic and where we say, oh, the sun rotates 365 days for a year. They're like, what's a year? What's 365 days? And so that is something we have to as well learn to let go of and, not sit there and go, oh, yeah, it'll take us 40 years to get to, say, Jupiter. Well, maybe not. Maybe when we get right out into the space, it's like we can be there in a matter of minutes because time doesn't work out there as it does here. And so that could be another illusion that we're going to find out that's going to be declassified is, you know, our time system. And it's no coincidence, too, that I think that the president has put forth and tried to get past the elimination of daylight savings as a step towards, that declassification of time is not a true measure anymore.
I like that theory, Michael. I know time feels like it's speeding up in my household. My husband just said the other day, he said, "Oh, it's Friday again." It's like we blinked our eyes, something, is going on. Yeah, they don't have time the same as we do on the other side. And, we do believe that this is all connected, right?
Right. Yeah, the chat room's having a lot of fun with the concept of time and deja vus. That's an interesting thing too. Are deja vus, do you think, going to get classified what they really are. If their timeline jumps or slips or merges, because I'm sure science has documented every Mandela effect and deja vu out there. And so, are we going, as you're saying in the baby steps, be like, hey, there's ETs. Hey, time is not what we think it is. Hey, here's, what the Mandela effects really are. Are they going to be those baby steps?
Right.
Or will science sit there and say, yeah, we still can't explain those, so we're going to keep it hush hush? Oh, you got a new fan. Terry says she's excited to
Oh,
read your books.
thank you, Terry.
And James, Wizard Wickus is James, and he's saying resets. We keep hearing about resets.
Hmm.
And could that be, some of these steps of declassifying these documents? That's one of the major resets that they had to do first, because they have been telling us for so long this is not real. Now it's a reset of, hey, this is real.
Right, right, right. Oh my God, it's just all so heavy, I mean, I don't know how the average person is going to take all of this. Really, I don't. But I do think that we need to keep talking about it and help people. That's what I want to do. I want to help people. Um, kind of be a cosmic ambassador to help people get acclimated to the idea of not being alone in the universe and going into something bigger. Do we have time to talk about extraterrestrials?
We do. We have, according to my clock, we got 7 minutes because, well, 5 minutes. We did start a couple minutes late, but I'll leave that up to you because I know you have stuff to do. So,
I'll run through it. So I haven't finished the files. I do know that there's some information in there about beings that are 3 feet tall. I've heard. I haven't reached that file yet. So yeah, there are releasing information on ETs, it looks like. And in the news recently, apparently there was a whistleblower that talked about 4 different types of beings, and I just wanted to hit that really quick. They were talking about the Nordics, reptilians, mantis beings, and grays. I just want to say there are many more. I do believe they're here. I do believe some of them have ships in the vicinity. Lots of people are seeing all kinds of different ships. I don't believe that the same race of beings are producing cylinder ships, spaceships, spherical ships, ships that look like, the figure 8. So I think that there are a lot of beings here and that we have been closed off from that knowledge. But there have been reportedly people that have seen and met Nordics, which is the tall, blonde, very pale skin ETs. That's one group of them. There's like 3 groups of pale skin ETs. Reptilians, I've been reading stories about reptilians for many years before AI and CGI of people coming across them. And I never wanted to look at it and face it, but apparently they are real and a thing. They're out there, but not all are bad, I'm hearing, and some are very aggressive. There are mantis beings that are in the news, and I've read stories of people, like I said, years and years and years ago, of people who have run into these beings just outside. One little boy was on a farm and he ran into one of these creatures or these beings. I don't want to say creatures. It makes it. I don't know. I don't want to belittle extraterrestrials. And there are many more. So we're beginning, but that was years ago that I came across this stuff, but it looks like people are seeing ETs more and more. Not just these beings, but lots of other reports of people seeing strange entities and beings out there. And I'm wondering if the reason we're getting this disclosure is because they're showing themselves more even. Not all at once, but slowly. So that's the thing. I just wanted to comment that they're out there. I believe they are here, and maybe just being quiet until we come fully into the awakening of their presence.
Well, and what's interesting to me, as we talk about these, the beings, being around, is I actually remembered and recalled like watching like cartoons like Johnny Quest from the 1960s or Fantastic Four
Hmm.
1960s. There's ant people, mole people, and all these different creatures or, beings. And yeah, I keep saying creatures because I see the way they portray them. It's like they look more like a creature than a being, but
Yeah.
they've been in our cartoons, they've been in our TV shows all along since the 60s on, but nobody pays attention to it. They just view it as, oh, yeah, that our guys, beat them. Okay, yeah, and they don't realize, wait a minute, I know those people because I've seen them. And
Mhm.
I often get curious, if the media kind of was like knew this day would come and was like slowly sifting it out in a way that people would be like at first like, oh, that's funny, oh, that's just cartoon world, or that's, the comic shows, being them.
Mhm.
But now it's like, wait a minute, we have Marvel disclosing stuff. Wait,
Yes.
they've been disclosing stuff all this time, and
Yeah.
we have been getting drips, and now they kind of turn the faucet up a little bit more. And so instead of being in drips now, are we going to start getting big pours, so to speak, along the way?
I like it. I can't wait. It's my passion, really. I mean, I could talk about extraterrestrials all day, but I do believe that we are being educated by extraterrestrials through the media and have been for some time. And that's why we have all of this information that you're talking about. And yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. In the Marvel movies, Thor, watch Thor. I think that world that he is from exists. There are worlds like that out there. And yes, they come in here. Those people come down here for whatever reason. Um, I think that they're here right now, some of them, to educate us and to move us into a galactic community. But I also think that they're coming for other reasons. They may be needing some of our resources. They may be living, among us to learn information to take back to their planet for even education reasons. Who knows? I mean, I put a long list of reasons I think they may be here. It's not just for disclosure. They've been here for a while. They could be, doing all kinds of, things on Earth that we don't understand or know about. Maybe some of them use Earth for vacation, vacation planet. I read about one group of I think this was on Catalina Island, maybe.
Yep.
These people who ran into some little strange little people that were checked into the hotel. And they said, "Where are you from?" And they said, "Up there, up there." Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Uh,
I think I agree with Terry that I think the important thing is with everything that's being disclosed that we focus on taking the fear out of it, because as long as the fear is in there, then I feel like the disclosure and declassification gets twisted. But when we take the fear out of it, we see it for what it is and we can accept it better.
I agree. I agree. And I have to say, there's a big movie coming out, Disclosure Day. And, I don't want to poo poo anything, so I haven't seen the movie, but it's looking a little creepy. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure I'm liking that. I don't want this subject to be portrayed as creepy. So I'm going to go see it in about a week. But yeah, let's be careful of what we're saying and what we're, putting out there.
I agree. And with that being said, we are at the hour, so I'm wanting to be respectful of your time. And so thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. And we will have to do it again because, I mean, like you said, this is going to be a long process. This is not a now that we've said it, we're going to wake up tomorrow and it's all done and we're all in the next stage of the declassification. It's like, nope, this is we're in for a journey.
Yeah, we're in for a journey. If you ever want me to come back and talk some more, I can talk all day. I have no problem with talking. There's going to be releasing of new files. So I don't know, maybe I'll come back if I find anything, that, well, sure, I will. Talk about what else is in there. Sure.
Yes. So before I go, I have one quick message for you, Constance. This is a new since you've been on the show before, and that is from my heart and the heart of my shows to you. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity. It's appreciated, it's felt, seen, and heard. And most importantly, thank you for being you.
Aw, thank you, Michael. That's lovely. And thanks for having me on. I've enjoyed it.
Yes, and for everybody, that's in the chat room and everything, follow Constance and her books and follow me with my shows, as you never know when we'll pop up and have another one of these. And so, with that being said, I'm going to switch it over to the outro and we will call it a day. I had to think for a second because I'm used to shows at night. And so, have a wonderful day, everyone. And we will see you all in the next episode. Have fun.